On this week's video, I thought it was time to do something a little bit different. In the past, I've done list videos focusing on, say, different types of Draculas or Frankensteins or Bigfoots, but I thought it'd be time to check out 10 movies featuring evil scarecrows. That's right, most of these are scarecrows come to life, but there's some variations on the theme, as you will soon see. And I guess it's time to figure out, which one of these are good and which one of them are pretty empty, full of straw. Can a movie be full of straw? That's dumb. Number 10. I could not resist including a movie with this dopey of a title, and it's 2020's Joker Scarecrow. This is a first-time directing job from Adam Harrison and was filmed in Romania. And we begin the old-fashioned way with a group headed up to camp in the woods. They're amidst these really cool green trees, but then just makes the editor and me cringe. It's filmed in English, but good luck hearing anything.
We'll eat something. What's here again?
But when you can hear them, it sounds like this.
Guys, we don't like that place. We heard the noises again.
Okay, honey, don't problem. I think this is a good place too.
Well, this is as good as any.
And there's a guy dressed as a scarecrow stalking them with an axe, but stops short of killing and instead gives them this card, which you can clearly see here is something. But then he starts chopping and then kidnaps a couple, and look at this great eye makeup. The scarecrow then, I guess, pokes the guy's eyes out, but they literally just had him end up with his eyes closed and some fake blood on his cheeks to really sell that outcome. This scarecrow appears to be just a guy wearing a mask, and oh, now I see it. It's a Joker. Hence the title, I guess. And here's an important PSA about low-budget filmmaking, because I know there's some of you out there that are thinking of making movies or hoping to make movies one day or whatever. So here's some crucial advice. If you're going to spend extra money, always put towards good sound guys and good editors. Like, listen to this. Your music is too loud, your dialogue is too low, and you just cut songs off in the middle of a choppily cut together chase. It's also really weirdly structured, since the better part of the whole first hour is basically a big stalking scene in the woods, but then just abruptly jumps ahead a month for the final half hour, and then that's just a big extended chase scene. And sadly, this isn't even a scarecrow, it's just a guy in a sack mask, and our list is off to a bit of a rough start. Number 9. Next up is 2018's Bride of Scarecrow, I guess also called Scarecrow Rising, by our old friend Louisa Warren, she of the British low-budget horror, which is always very well produced and yet often painfully dull. We start in horse stables, which I'm presuming is the same location as the one we saw in The Tooth Fairy, and there's a family whose great-grandfather was wrongfully accused and died in the fields. And now, many years later, the Scarecrow will return with his spirit to seek his bride. And sure enough, he does. But then this lady is back, and she's kind of Warren's lead of choice, and she's a DJ, and she's inherited that farm. Her boyfriend is also the guy who played her estranged boyfriend from Tooth Fairy, and weirdly, one of the co-workers is the lady who played her mom in that one, and her attorney is the guy who played her freaking grandfather there. Also, Sean C. Phillips shows up to do what he does, deliver exposition and backstory of the film's villain. And then, hilariously, there's this homeless guy who gets killed by the Scarecrow, and he was also a homeless guy who got killed by the Tooth Fairy in that movie. I think in the same exact stall. And yeah, honestly, if you've seen Tooth Fairy, this is pretty much the same movie, just with a different looking villain with a different backstory, but it plays out the same way. And I've now seen like 5 Warren films, and they all kind of have the same feel. I want to like them because they all look really nice and there's a genuine attention to the filmmaking aspects of it. It's not like they just shot super quick with no care for the cinematography and design and such, and all of the actors are pretty solid, turning in nice performances, but they all just kind of plod along without really giving us anything we haven't seen before or something to really stand out from the pack. Louisa Warren, this is my message to you. I want to be a fan, I really do, because I like what you're doing. But give me a script that's gonna make me take notice. But hey, the Scarecrow's a real scarecrow and not just a guy in a mask, so there's that. Even if it looks like brand new clothes and definitely not something that's literally been in a field for about 50 years or whatever. And oh yeah, in case you're wondering, yes, the ending of this is basically identical to that of Tooth Fairy. Don't think I didn't notice. I guess I should also point out that Warren has two other Scarecrow movies, Curse of the Scarecrow and Scarecrow's Revenge, neither of which appear to be connected to this one, just also movies with a scarecrow in them. Perhaps if I do a sequel to this list in the future, I'll cover them. Number 8. Okay, gonna keep it simple now with the simply titled Scarecrows. And before you get your hopes up, this one's from 2017. We'll get to that other one. This one is directed by Stuart Stone, who's been an actor for ages and is mostly known for playing one of Donnie's friends in Donnie Darko, and starts with a person being propped up in a field as a scarecrow. And there's a group of teens on a trip together, of course, and they end up hiking to a lagoon and they find not one, but 2 severed fingers and don't just get the hell out of there, which is, yeah, that might be one of the dumbest decisions in horror. So the premise here, instead of a killer scarecrow or scarecrows, we have a crazy farmer who is turning people into scarecrows to kill them. When one of the friends is hurt because he can't get through this fence somehow, like how did he manage to hurt himself so badly on this? And I would like to point out that this happens close to the 40-minute mark of the movie. Nothing has happened to this point except that they've introduced the characters, they've walked and talked on the way to a lagoon, hung out there, and are now walking back. Finally, 41 minutes in, the halfway point of the movie, the farmer guy shows up. He kidnaps the crew, and then it goes into a whole torture porn kind of thing with him turning the teens into human scarecrows and stitching up their mouths and stuff and nailing them to posts to put in the field. And it feels like some sort of refugee from the mid-2000s and includes classic hits like I have a weapon in my hands and the killer is knocked out on the ground in front of me. Guess I'll run away. And yep, it's really not good. It's not terrible or anything. I mean, you're not gonna watch this and be like, this is the worst movie I've seen. Like, it's not even the worst movie on this list. Looking at you, Joker Scarecrow. But I honestly can't think of a single thing to recommend about it. Number 7. Our next stop in the field is 2011's Husk, which starts off with a car wreck leaving some friends stranded on the countryside. And this one was written and directed by Brett Simmons, who made You Might Be the Killer, which I enjoyed, so I have a little higher hopes here. There's a mysterious scarecrow here, of course, and an old spooky house. They find some spooky stuff like this, I guess, sewing zombie? They're attacked by something in the corn, killing Natalie and hanging her up. And they're being stalked by an evil scarecrow, because that's what we're here for. It seems like the corn has surrounded them in, with zombie Natalie then showing up and having flashbacks to a guy killing his brother. The friends all start to come undone a bit, and it turns into a bit of a mystery of what's exactly going on here, but it's not really anything groundbreaking. And this is pretty similar to You Might Be the Killer, and that it looks phenomenal and has some really nice stuff going on. But it just doesn't seem to know what to do with itself. It has a solid premise that it sets up well enough and gives you some creepy stuff, but then it just can't sort of figure out how to get from the setup to the finale without a bunch of what amounts to filler. All said and done though, this was a pretty good watch and the first one on this list that I particularly enjoyed. Number 6. How about 2017's Return of the Scarecrow? It's billed as an 80s throwback and starts with a scarecrow attacking a couple of guys, and I like to celebrate what I believe is the 500th time that I've said this, but we have a group of young people on a trip to a rural area together. and they get told that an area is haunted and there's an evil that wakes up every 30 years or so, and we get a fun little cutout backstory. There was a family of witches that were killed and their power went into a nearby scarecrow, infusing it with evil, and they go up to camp with the straw man showing up almost immediately. And then, in a kinda odd turn of events, the whole thing was just a story being told by yet another bartender to yet another group of people. The survivor of the flashback is the bartender, and this group is also going camping, so a couple of yokels decide to prank them and engage in some Abbott and Costello type shenanigans. And then the killer scarecrow just kind of follows the bumpkin around for a while, and it just kind of wanders around for a while, bouncing from character to character, and yeah, there's really no plot here. But I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. It has a nice sense of humor, and I think with a bit more polish and budget, this could have been better. I feel the need to clarify that this isn't good. It's objectively kind of bad, but I enjoyed it anyway because it didn't take itself too seriously, but also it wasn't trying to be bad. Although I will tell you that the ending is supremely anticlimactic and almost undoes the small amount of goodwill that it's built up. Number 5. These have all been a little too recent, so let's jump back to 1996's Psycho Scarecrow. And how do you know it's the 90s? Well, look at this computer animation. And oh my lord, a woman commits suicide, I think. Watch this, because this is amazing. Can we see that again? Everyone, we're in for something special, aren't we? A couple of cops are on the job and it flashes back to a group of young people going on a trip to a rural area together. 501. They head to a cornfield and there's a spooky scarecrow there, and in between really convincing PlayStation 1 graphics, one of their numbers has an accident and dies, and they do a whole I know what you did last summer kind of thing. And like that one, for no reason. There's absolutely zero reason to think that anyone would suspect it was anything other than an accident. But they just go ahead and decide to mount him up like a scarecrow. But then their car breaks down and an evil force takes over the corpse in very 90s fashion. It starts getting revenge while sporting a pumpkin head, and it kind of feels like an 80s throwback, but it's hard to tell if it was intentional or if it was just made a little too late. It's weird because it keeps cutting to the cops and stopping the movie dead in its tracks, and I half wonder if it's because the movie wasn't long enough, so they had to shoot that stuff later. Plus, after the completely goofy introduction, it gets a little standard and not as hilarious as I would have hoped, and it just feels like a regular old 90s horror film. It's humorous and kind of enjoyable because of that, but it's nothing special and a little forgettable at the end of the day. Although, it does end with a pretty glorious shot of the Scarecrow cruising on a motorcycle. Number 4. Let's go back to more modern times with 2017's Scarecrows, which kicks off with a guy getting his head chopped off by someone with a sigh. And judging from the accents, we're back in the UK. And we follow a young hairdresser and they talk about making Scarecrows, and they emphasize the scary, so it's a legitimate thing and not just the title. And this is not in regards to this movie in specific, but in regards to British movies in general, and that's that they call college uni. And I don't know about you, but when I hear uni, there's only one thing I'm thinking of.
No way!
Her boyfriend wants to get out of town, and we get a flashback to an old local legend in which the village used the Scarecrows to freak out an invading force, so every year they have a celebration. But there's more to the story in which a witch brought them to life to kill invaders. And we meet the wacky assortment of the characters in the town, and then the Scarecrows come to life and start attacking. Because everyone is decorated theirs differently, they all have different themes, and it seems to stem back to wheelchair-bound Cassie, and this kind of reminds me of Return of the Scarecrow in that it's actually pretty watchable without quite being good. It's a better movie than that one, and I can't say for sure that you'll enjoy it, but there was definitely a charm to it that I liked. I'm not ready to recommend it yet. It's not something like that, but it's more like if this comes on the TV and you don't feel like getting up because the remote control is way over there, you won't be mad. And you know what? The ending is fun enough that I'm gonna upgrade that. If it comes on and the remote is right next to your hand, still just leave it on. Number 3. Back to the classics now with 1988's simply titled Scarecrows, and I'm hoping it's better than the other one with that name, but then it has to be. So we have a bunch of crooks who hijack a small plane, but one of their crew double crosses the rest, and they head off to track him down. Bert ends up hiding in an old farmhouse and he grabs the loot out there, but uh-oh, there's scarecrows in the field, like a bunch of them, and they're alive, of course, and the crew closes in, along with a kidnapped pilot and his daughter. They all wander around for a while, maybe too long. It feels like they just walk around for like 3 hours, but things pop off when they find Bert and he's been stuffed and just goes wild. Then, at around the 1 hour point, the movie finally wakes up and the Scarecrows go on the full attack. They're bulletproof and take the body parts they need from their victims, and they can mimic human voices in order to lure in prey. There's some pretty cool creatures popping up made up of the dead criminals, and this is decent. It just takes too long to get going, and although there is some fun to be had in the final act, there's just not enough there. There's a handful of fun effects, but again, it's a little too late. It's not terrible though, so it's not a complete bust. Number 2. Another entry from the 90s is Jeff Burr's Night of the Scarecrow from 95. He had previously just completed a series of horror sequels to other franchises, including Texas Chainsaw, Puppet Master, and Pumpkinhead, so it was nice to see him tackle a new property. There's a small farming town, and the mayor's daughter comes back for the first time in a while, and the mayor's last name is Goodman. Get it? Well, in case you don't.
Good man.
Yeah. Goodman.
Then, a couple of randos accidentally bust some sort of ancient seal in the ground, and then Chopstick in the Eye guy is here, as is Crispin's dad, Sister Hyde, and even Milton. The Scarecrow in the field is then brought to life in a pretty glorious fashion, and it starts attacking. And hey, drunk dude is John freaking Hawkes, Oscar-nominated John Hawkes, just chilling in Night of the Scarecrows. And you know, this is 1995 and he looks like he's 18 or 19 or something, so how in the hell does IMDb have his first film listed as Police Academy in 1984 as a truck driver? Did he get his license at like 8 years old or something?
Hi, fellas.
The Scarecrow continues his spree looking pretty cool, and he does talk, but apparently in the original script, he had a bunch of Freddy-style one-liners, but they were cut out before shooting began. Things get weird when the creature jams a corn kernel or something down a girl's throat, causing vines to sprout out of her body and then freaking drag her into the ground. You might be impressed by that, but it'll go away when you see the crappy CGI they throw your way next. And the backstory tells us about an evil warlock the town cut a deal with, but then killed him. There's some more pretty fun practical straw death effects, and this is the real deal throwback. This feels like an old school horror film, and it's paced right, keeping things lively, and it's never really dull, but it's not exactly memorable, so I understand why it didn't make more of an impact, but it is actually pretty damn fun and worth a watch, and hot damn, it took 9 freaking movies for someone to make this joke.
How about some fire, Scarecrow?
Number 1. Our final stop on this journey through the corn is 1981's Dark Night of the Scarecrow, which was actually a TV movie. It was originally intended to be a feature film, but CBS bought the script and actually made the film with very little changes. It has Durant, Robert G. Durant, in it as mentally challenged Bubba and Waring Hudsucker. When little Mary Lee is attacked by a dog, Bubs is blamed for it, and the townsfolk hunt him down, and he tries to hide by pretending to be a scarecrow. Of course, he's pretty easily found and they execute him mere seconds before discovering that he was completely innocent. The yokels get off scot-free, showing no remorse, and pretty soon a mysterious scarecrow is showing up in their fields. And oh yeah, one of the bumpkins is Lieutenant Chapham from Bride of Reanimator, and pretty soon someone's after them, arranging some drastic methods of death like this chopper. And then there's little spots from old Fred from Hills Have Eyes, and Otis starts to unravel. And this is pretty much the ultimate Scarecrow movie. I know it's a TV movie, so you have to expect a certain amount of bloodlessness, but it doesn't really matter because it is just dripping with tension. And with this many great character actors in it, you know that the performances are all top notch. When we finally get to see the Scarecrow in action, it's very subtle, and the look of it is definitely a less is more kind of thing. And it works really well. Those eyes are just haunting. And yeah, a big recommend on this one from me. So there you have it, 10 movies about scarecrows, evil scarecrows, people turning into scarecrows, guys dressed up as scarecrows, whatever. And most of them were actually entertaining. There's only a couple of them that I would qualify as being pretty damn good, but I enjoyed most of these. There was only a couple of them that I just did not enjoy watching. But overall, there was more in this than my standard list that I liked. If you've seen any of these or you know of any other Scarecrow movies that you could recommend, I had a whole handful that did not make the list, so there will probably be a sequel in the future. Let me know what you want to see on that sequel down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. If you like what you see on the channel, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get notified when new videos are coming out. And of course, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines like these guys over here do. They help support the channel, and so can you. If you do that, that would be pretty awesome. But in the meantime, just keep on watching the videos, and I will see you very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys, and bye-bye.